This is Russell Harvey, the Resilience Coach, and you are listening to the Academy's Developing Practice podcast.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Academy's Developing Practice podcast. In this episode, we chat with Russell about his work as a resilience coach and the dangers of burnout. We hope you enjoy.
Russell, we're really pleased to be speaking to you today. We're delighted to talk to you about your work as a resilience coach and the dangers of burnout. But before we get started, we love to get to know our guest a little bit. So if you could tell us a bit about your background and how you've got to the role that you're in today, that would be great.
Yeah, of course. No problem at all. Thank you so much for inviting me as a guest. Really appreciate it. And hello to everybody that's listening. So I reflect on this question a lot about, how to get into what you do. I think even goes back to being a kid. I'm a looker afterer. That's something that I remember and I realised. And then the short version of where I am today as the resilience coach is 1996 in Hong Kong. I was teaching. So I was traveling around the world for a year and we did the traditional strop off and teach in Hong Kong. And there was some magic that was happening in the room. But I didn't know what it was. And I was thinking, this is something marvellous, it's brilliant here. And it was only later on that I went, do you know what? Learning, people having light bulb moments, people having realization moments. It did something to my psyche. So I knew at that time, it's like, do you know what? I think I want to do this learning thing, but I don't want to be a teacher. I just like a teacher in a school wasn't for me. So then I thought, I want to be a trainer. So then my whole career was like that. So came back from traveling, went into a sales job, but with the knowledge that I said, you know what, I think I want to be a trainer. So that's what was driving me. So I went to night school and paid for myself to do a certificate in training practice. So learning, leadership, organisational development has been my career. And today I describe myself as a coach and a facilitator. It's who I am, essentially. And my last permanent role was at the Co-op Group in Manchester, which I loved. Not long after I joined, it got itself into a pickle, nothing to do with me. And everything that I was doing was talking about resilience and the lovely acronym of VUCA, which we may or may not talk about today. And that's how the resilience coach was formed, because I left the co-op and went, who am I? What do I do? It's like, do you know what? Literally, I'm the resilience coach. So that's how the name came about.
Fantastic. I love what you said about the light bulb moments in that classroom. What did that actually look like? What got you excited about those light bulbs?
It was literally people having their realization moments. When people went from sort of confused face to aha face, there was when that happened, I had this like little zap inside me of like, oh God, that's brilliant. What's that all about? And that links into, my purpose in my bio, which people may have looked at. Positively affect 100,000 people by the year 2025. That's what the positively affect is. Anybody that I come across that I see that sort of goes from, I don't know how to do that, thinking to, right, I could probably try this. That's what informs me.
Yeah, fantastic. And I guess you're looking for those light bulb moments across everyone that you work with, that whole spectrum, the executives, the leaders, the academics.
Absolutely, yeah. I'm not arrogant enough to think that everybody that I come in contact with is positively affected by me. But it was really nice. I was talking to a client the other day, and a few people have been good at reminding me around, well, do you know what, Russell, you might impact me, but I go off and I do something different and I impact them. So it's like, it's exponential. It's, pebble in the pond type idea. And it's a nice way of thinking about it as well.
Yeah. So, what was your role at the Co-op Group? Were you in organisational development, and then were finding yourself actually being a coach most of that time?
Yeah. So I loved the Co-op. I sort of felt like I come home in terms of my values when I landed there. So yes, I was genuinely part of the talent and organisational development team, the department, and leadership development specialist. So it was an awesome role, because I was in the head office in Manchester, which is a great building. And all of my clients were like, the top 200, 300 people. I had different departments I looked after with some others. And I literally just walk up to people's desks and go, so what support do you need? And it's like all the time, every day, it was like, well, let's go for a coffee and have a chat. And that's, I was just coaching all the time. It was just awesome, Matt. It was brilliant.
It was brilliant, but in difficult circumstances then, I guess, because I do remember that time when the co-op was in the news a little bit because it was struggling, wasn't it? The whole group, I think, was under some pressure. So you must have had to sort of think about your resilience at that point as well, because I guess if the organisation starts to need you more, then your own resilience might start to take a bit of an impact. Yeah,
and so what really helped was the team that I was part of, the line managers and leaders in my immediate vicinity, and actually the colleagues I had around us. It was great. It was special. The setup was really good about finding ways for each individual to be at their best. And colleagues really cared about each other. So that all of that helped with my natural resilience at that moment in time. And I was talking about this with my wife, talking about this at the weekend. So I commuted to Leeds to Manchester, and it's like an hour and a half door to door. But Trish was always talking about, God, that must have been tough. And I said, well, no, actually, my journey to and from work was my reflection time. That was my recuperation, talk to myself, re-energizing time, work stuff through. So if anything was challenging, it really worked for me to be able to do that. So, yeah, I'm not belittling. I think nobody really understands the extent to how challenging the business was going through at that time, and how challenging it was, and how challenging people were finding it. And then just a lot of people were in a difficult place. And I was able to do something about it in my own small way. So that made me feel good.
Brilliant. It rings true to me as well. So that hour and a half was exactly door to door my commute to the university before the pandemic. And you're right, I had that decompression time, especially on the way home. So by the time I got through the door, I'd left all of that. I'd left all of work at work. I could just be part of the family straight away. And that was that's something I don't have now, apart from those odd days where I spend on campus. And they are odd days. There's maybe 2 days a week at the most. But that's gone now. So the lines are a little bit more blurred. Is that the same for you as well?
Yeah. So it's really curious. So I'm lucky in that I am reasonably naturally self-sufficient, but also all personality type wise, I need other humans, I'm one of them. But I'm okay with my own company as well. So it just has been really interesting throughout the whole of all the time running one's own business, doing that, but doing that with others, being an associate for a couple of companies, and that really helped. And then finding one's tribe in running one's own business, what your support network is going to be around that has helped. And yeah, throughout the pandemic, the fact that everything went from face to face to online, that was hard work. It was 2 years of literally just, standing where I am now or sitting where I am now, looking at a green dot, but literally 2 years relentlessly of that and nothing else. But then you had to sort of go out for walks, or when you could go to a local coffee shop, and that was I'll just stare at everybody else in the coffee shop and I'll get their energy, type thing. And I'm really curious about going forward, just how the balance will strike between face to face and online. It's pretty good at the minute, and it's sort of working organically.
Yeah, that's what we're finding the same thing. I think it's working organically. There are some challenges in there, but it's nothing. There's no showstoppers, I don't think. No, and I'm glad you've mentioned the pandemic. Obviously, during that time, as we've been talking about, the term resilience was brought into a really sharp focus for the public, wasn't it? That it was in the public consciousness a lot. Yeah. So I think just to get us going and to really get into the topic of what we're talking about today, can you try and define resilience for us, and maybe offer a little bit of insight into how you do the coaching around that?
Yeah. So my definition of resilience, and then I'll do an explanation. So from all of life's experiences, whether good or not so good, we need to pause, we need to reflect, we need to recuperate and re-energize and spring forward with learning. And that's my definition around resilience from my years of experience. Pause, reflect, re-energize, and spring forward with learning. I'm not a huge fan of the term bounce back. I absolutely know that it's there in the research, and I'm not dissing it, but it's just a case of resilience is about life's events happen either to us or we are facing into them and we're working with them. But if we say, right, I'll now go back, there is a risk that we won't have learned. So I was just like, I'm on a bit of a one-person mission, and anybody listening to this, you can follow me. It's just like, I'm spring forward learning. So there's 3 bits to being resilient. There's the natural resilience that we are born with in various levels, and then it's the whole nature nurture conversation around how have our life's experiences enabled us to build upon that. It's massively about the recuperating and the re-energizing. So I'll talk about that loads. And then it's about resilience skills. So then I have on my website is the resilience wheel, which is a build upon the work from Robertson Cooper. There's 7 aspects to it. So in terms of answering your question around how do you coach resilience, first things first, it's with an individual client or a team or an organization. As ever, it's a case of what does a resilient you look like, sound like, and feel like? Have you got a blueprint for that, a straw person for that? And I build upon that as well with what do you need to do to get optimistic? Is a question I also ask clients. So the slight nuance between optimism and positivity is that optimism is grounded in reality. So being positive is wonderful, fantastic, great. Occasionally not grounded in reality. So you get grounded in reality, and then with your own strengths, skills, capabilities, behaviors, experiences, mindset that you've got and the people around you have got, is to go, actually, I'm genuinely hopeful. I genuinely believe that we can face into this. It's not make believe, it's genuine belief. Actually, with everything I've got, I am optimistic we'll be able to face into those challenges. And then that gives you feelings of positivity. So then how a coach is, I do use a psychometric strength scope, because I talk about strengths and re-energizing, and that's all about this word energy, being at your best. So if clients want to, we'll do that, their strength scope, their significant 7. And then it's also get them to look at their wheel. So it's just like, traditional coaching sense, it might be the wheel of life, but it's the resilience wheel. And it's like, if you get your resilience wheel, the 7 aspects into a half decent place, then you'll have built levels of resilience. So your capacity and capability to face into life's challenges might actually, how you view those challenges might be diminished. You might have historically thought, actually, that's a big challenge, but now I'm feeling more resilient. Or I see it less of a challenge, actually, and could get a bit more into seeing it as an opportunity. That's the short version, I think, about how I do it. Ask me clients, see what they say.
I really like that. It's interesting. I used to teach child development, and we used to define resilience as that bounce back ability. But actually what you're saying is it's not about bouncing back, it's about moving forward, isn't it? And I guess when you're coaching your clients, is there a tendency within them to, when something is challenging, to get back to the point where they were? But actually, is what you're saying, actually, we don't want to be back where we were. We want to learn from it and move forward. Is that what you're saying?
So one of the huge elements of being resilient is the lovely word of adaptability. So I do feel like I live in like business buzzword land, 90% of the time. But the adaptability is the openness to change. So yes, Alex, this is where the learning comes from about, how open, how curious are you to doing things differently? And then as we know, as learning development professionals, we'll talk about the stretch zone rather than the comfort zone. So where the re-energizing, the recuperating comes from is like actually put yourself in some of the comfort zone. This is nice. Re-energize, recuperate, so that you can go again to the stretch zone, and then actually what the stretch zone is could expand, could be different. And the adaptability. So there's some good research that shows that those people that are in the lovely word of thrive, which is what resilience is, coping and surviving is coping and surviving. And you may be using some resiliency skills, but you're not necessarily being resilient. Those that are in thriving, they spend 1/3 of their time working upon their adaptability. And that absolutely fascinates me every time. I've just seen, Matt, your your brain, your mind's just gone off in one direction, around, what? So I do ask my clients, I ask everybody. So anybody that's listening to this, so you were spending a third of your time working on your adaptability. What does that look like, sound like, and feel like to you? What's your adaptability personal development plan? And then that helps with people understanding the nuance between adaptability and agile. So adaptability is openness to change, but not necessarily doing the change. You're just open to the idea of it. But then the agile is actually, I'm making a quick decision to do the change. That's the nuance. That's a slight difference between it. Because we throw words out into the universe. You need to be resilient, you need to be flexible, you need to be adaptable, you need to be agile. And everyone's going, well, Christ, which one? What is it? And for me, in my reflections in the years of 15 years playing around with this word resilience, that's just where I've got to around what it seems to me. Yeah,
absolutely. I wonder, like you're saying, if the word resilience has had a bit of a bad rap, particularly in HE. Yeah. I know I remember having a conversation about a year ago with a colleague. I think we were doing some resilience training workshops at the university. And she was really clear, this academic. She was like, do not talk to me about resilience. I do not want to be made more resilient.
No.
And actually her point was, we kind of banned around the word a bit, where actually she wanted to see the structures at the university change. She was tired of being told she needed to be more resilient. And actually there needed to be change at an institution level in terms of maybe workload. I'm just wondering what you think we should say to members of staff who are a bit tired of the word resilience.
So I agree with them. So I don't know if it helps, but say, the resilience coach agrees with you. It's absolutely the space we've been in the last few years with the pandemic. The word resilience has been bandied around. So I believe it is incorrect for people and organizations to say you just need to be resilient. I did write a blog about, toxic resilience, or resilience becomes a toxic word, and it is more about, start where you can. The individual line manager or somebody senior in the organization that's got within their gift, it is to think more about actually how we just generally approach the way in which we do our work. That needs to be, looked at through this lens of what resilience is, what thrive is, what it actually means. And I'm tried a few times and really want to get a conversation going about what makes a resilient organization. Because, brilliantly, a load of people do it in terms of business resilience, business continuity management, business risk, how are you doing things, threats against cyber attacks? Great. And what about the human resilience side of your organization, this whole resource of all of your humans? So I think it's, so if, we getting an organization to change its structures is the right thing to do, but it takes time. So from an individual point of view, at those moments in time, the individual will need to look at themselves and their resilience wheel to get themselves into a place where they feel like, or actually genuinely have more choices. That's the thing for me at that particular moment in time, because we feel stuck. So we're on the hamster wheel. So this is about, step one, somebody recognizing that they are on the hamster wheel, and it is an option for them to take a step off, pause, reflect, re-energize, spring forward learning. So it is to start with, it's to see what is within their gift that they could do, what choices that they might have. And then from that, there might be loads of things that they can do differently, different choices they make. But then that also might segue into them having a slightly different conversation with their line manager, with the organization, with somebody senior, to go, I am working upon myself, but part of the challenge is that the organization isn't. So I need you to, I need you, organization, to do something for me. That's just, I see so many organizations doing it. I really do.
Yeah, it's a challenge, isn't it, that? I mean, like you say, an organisation doesn't change all that quickly.
No.
And from my experience, a public sector organisation doesn't change at all sometimes. The wheels of change can be incredibly slow in the public sector. That's what I feel, having worked in it for nearly 20 years. But your message about thinking about your own mindset, I think, is incredibly important, because I think you can get bogged down with the day-to-day so much. You can feel so much pressure with the things that you have to deliver on a daily basis, that it's very easy to stop that self-reflection. And you mentioned something earlier about strengths that really stuck with me. I did a strengths profile a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
And there was quite a few things on there which I thought, I need to really work on this. Because my strengths were like creativity, sense of humor, and all these things. Whereas my things that I said I needed to work on was empathic connection with others, and sort of understand. It was that sort of, if I wrap it all up, it was emotional intelligence. That was the bit that was lacking. I feel like there's many other people who are in the same spot as me in the university. They haven't got the time to look at themselves, and actually it's to their detriment that they don't carve out that time to think about their own mindset. And again, I know we're all guilty of this. We're throwing in buzzwords here, but emotional intelligence and resilience and things like that, these are real things.
Yes.
So I think we really do need to spend that time on these things. Growth mindset is a real thing. Fixed mindset is a real thing, and I feel like you can get stuck in that fixed mindset. Do you agree?
I absolutely do. So the heart of resilience is our attitude, and so in that bit, I do start to talk about the growth and the fixed mindset. So all aspects of the wheel are sort of interconnected, and they all help each other. So sometimes you might want to start with thinking about, what's my value system, which is, the deep dive stuff, it takes us a while to get there. So we might not want to start there, but some people do. One of the ones that I have found that works for an awful lot of my clients. So when they talk to me, they're taking a step off the hamster wheel. Just that physical act of talking to somebody is a step off the wheel, They might still have a foot on it, but more of the times that they have conversations with me, they get themselves further off the hamster wheel to give themselves perspective. And in that moment, we talk a lot about what's your purpose, right? What are you here for? That's one of the dimensions of the resilience wheel. And I think as a consequence of the pandemic, positive unintended consequence, is a lot more people have been going, what am I here for? Why am I doing this? What do I really want? And that's, for me, that's fantastic. That's brilliant. The fact that you're even just thinking about that, because then when you live to your purpose, it just everything, changes. So many people have their light bulb moments of like, can I? They give themselves permission to do things. It's just, so it's sort of like start somewhere on the wheel, and it might be the purpose, it might be confidence, it might be something else, but start somewhere on it, and that has little positive impacts in all other aspects of the wheel. And from that, you'll feel more able to learn the growth mindset. You'll feel less fixed, and the big thing to remember around the fixed and the growth mindset is it's more about recognizing, giving yourself praise for the effort that you've put in, the fact that you even tried, rather than the end result.
Right.
And I think, Alex, you'll be familiar with this from all of the, the child development things.
I definitely struggle with that. I've always got the end goal in mind. I never give myself thanks for the work that's gone in. So I'm guilty of that. The whole gratitude thing as well, because I know how gratitude can link into resilience, and that I find that such a hard thing to do. Just think of 3 things that you're grateful for in the morning. There's some of the advice I've heard, and I'm like, I don't know. I've got a roof over my. I really struggle with it, and it should be easy. I think it's one of those things you need to practice, maybe.
Well, I just slight little positive challenge for you, Matt. So you can do it. So you thanked me for coming on the podcast today. That's gratitude. So who have you thanked recently for anything inside and outside of work? And any time that you've done that, that's practicing gratitude.
Okay, well, I'm always doing that.
Right. Okay. So,
Yeah.
So that's gratitude as well.
Right. Okay.
So so the tiny build might just be, you might want to just add a tiny wee bit into the thanks that you're giving about the behavior that somebody has done.
Right.
Or you might want to say the specific thing I appreciated about what you've done is, then this is what I'm grateful for today. And then literally, if anybody's listening who wants to, what you build upon that is that could go into something that you write down at the end of the day. I'm not an proponent of like you've got to do gratitude journals, but might sit there at the end of the day with a cup of tea or something else and go, actually, the things that I'm grateful for today. And you just go through who have I thanked today? And that's you practicing gratitude.
Oh, right. Okay. That's a much easier thing than me trying to think of things that I'm personally grateful for. Things that, well, I've just said thank you. So that could be really simple. Like, when I was checking out the hotel the other day, I give them, I thanked them for the service and the stay was really lovely, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, I think that's really good advice. Thanks for that.
No problem.
What we've been talking about is obviously in terms of organizational cultures almost. What do you think it is about today's culture, both in and out of work, that's having a negative impact on well-being and potentially therefore making us a less resilient generation than the previous one? Or do you think that we aren't? Do you think that we aren't that?
So interestingly, my company's a member of something called the Oxford Review that looks at all research around learning development and organisational development. And there was a study saying Generation Z was less resilient than others. And then they went back to it and said, that's not true. So every generation has its own challenges, so it's always looking through it. So no generation was less or more resilient than the other. They were just demonstrating their levels of resilience with the challenges that they had, essentially, is what the latest thinking is around it. And I think what's not helped is we've got this lovely word of snowflake around now, which is just not helping.
Yeah.
And in my opinion, that's gaslighting. And to sort of go to the question, what's happening inside and outside of work, just sort of the thing that I've noticed around, because I've always been fascinated around why are things the way they are? Why are humans working like that? I always try and look behind it. So just notice that in my lifetime, a real diversion around self versus community. So there's just a huge amount of things about, it's only about the individual. It's only hard work that will get you through. It's only about you. You're the only one. There's the whole belief system around that. And there's the belief system around, well, do you know what? It's probably about me and others, and there's a whole, world that's looking at it through like that. That's always been around. But, for the different sort of political thinking that we've had, different organizations that we've had, the fact that we're more of a shareholder economy rather than a stakeholder economy, that just feeds into more on the self side. And I've noticed, going back to the question around, is this generation or next generation more resilient than others? I've noticed the generations coming behind me that are actually stepping up. They are saying, actually, this isn't the way the world should be. This isn't the way life should be. So they're demonstrating resilience and they are shouting about it in terms of there's something really wrong with our climate, or there's something really wrong with the way we've done things before. So organizationally, going back to this lovely word of adaptability, and in terms about whether businesses are going to survive or not, or thrive going forward, I was always trying to have the conversation with organizations around, yes, you've got through the pandemic and this lovely word pivot came about, but it was like,
yes, it did. Yeah.
So, great. That's adaptability, pivot. But it was just to be able to take a step back and go, have you genuinely adapted? And are you genuinely doing something different to what you're doing before? Or have you just put more effort and energy into doing the same thing? And there's a lot of people that did that. And then as a consequence of that, when the pandemic was over, in inverted commas, we had a fuel crisis. And that was the one that crashed their business. to go, I've gone through all of this and now you've done this to me. So we've got further crises. So those organizations that genuinely adapted, genuinely did something different, they're the ones that are coming out through the other side. And I just think I'm noticing in all of small, medium, large businesses today, the generations coming through is far more about, I don't think I want to work for certain types of businesses that are more focused on the money than the human. I want to work for a business that is genuinely doing both, So it's like profit with purpose.
Which comes back to your purpose again.
Yeah.
On the wheel.
Yeah. So for me, all of my brain likes connections, but all of these things are interconnected. And I read a good book, never met the chap, but Rutger Bregman, Humankind. It just was one of those throughout the pandemic, came from somewhere. And he's just looked at the whole evolution of, humans from the start again and gone, humans good or humans not good? And he's just revisited the whole question and completely sort of blown my mind at different times. Looked at all aspects of things and go, well, actually, we've been led to believe this, but the truth was this. So he's got lots of evidence to go, actually, we're all right as human beings. We're not as bad as we've been led to believe. So it restored my faith in humanity, essentially.
Brilliant. Well, we'll definitely have that one on the reading list for colleagues and for people who are listening. That actually does remind me of when you're talking about the truth, that poster that was popular a few years back, and it was sort of a play on the World War II slogan, "Keep calm and carry on."
Yes.
As it turns out, that poster wasn't around in World War II. Nobody had that up on their shops and their properties. That was a myth. Are you aware of that, Russell?
I've got a vague memory of it. So tell me again.
So yeah, that "keep calm and carry on." So the people look back at that generation and say, how resilient they were. They kept calm and they carried on. But actually, what I've read is the truth is there wasn't much keeping calm. It was a time of complete chaos. Bombs were literally raining from the sky. People had to carry on because they had nothing else they could do. But the keep calm bit is a bit of a myth.
Yeah.
So that, looking back at that generation and saying how resilient they were is probably not actually true. Those posters and those things that we see about that generation weren't actually around at that point. So
yeah,
interesting. So I'm happy that you think the next generation seem to have that. Not only are they resilient, but they are they're talking about it. And they're voting with their feet. We spoke about finding purpose and what happened in the pandemic. What also, as a result of that, then, do you think that's why we're still going through that great reshuffle? I think at the time it was called the Great Resignation because people were looking at their purpose.
For me, I absolutely think that's what is informing, the Great Resignation and whatever. Yeah, for me, I'm observing that we are, we're making as a choice as a sort of society, as a global world around, am I going to purely just go down the self angle or am I going to go around the me and others angle? That's the lens in which I sort of see or can understand why people are saying the things they are, why the conversations on Twitter that take place, are they a conversation? Or the two sides of a raging things that happen. I think everybody's working that out, and I think I'm also seeing that people are going, actually, do you know what? It is about me and others. So one of the many bits of terminology around the resilience and the well-being space is this word of self-full, not selfish, self-full. So the definition of that is I look after myself first so that I can look after others.
Right.
But there's a value system behind that, because we could just literally go, no, I'll just look after myself first.
Yeah.
Full stop, pause, nothing else, which is selfish, So I do feel that society has always shown that we got an element community to it. But there's an awful lot of commentary about it's just about the individual. I'm not saying it's necessarily true.
Yeah. I'm just going to pivot.
Brilliant. Well done.
I'm just going to pivot to a conversation more about sort of general well-being, really. Yeah. some of our colleagues in the university and beyond might be struggling with their motivation. I mean, it's a funny time of year, actually. We're talking just a couple of weeks before Christmas. And, I've had colleagues say to me, at what point do you down the tools sort of conversation? So I know there's people in the university who've had a long, hard term who might be struggling with their energy or their motivation or even confidence at work. So in terms of like general well-being, what would you say to those colleagues?
Yeah, absolutely. So resilience and well-being highly interconnected. If people look at the resilience wheel, I've put one of the dimensions is just this word energy. And there's lots in it. And that's very simplistically where I have put the well-being bit, So it might be semantics, but I see myself as a resilience specialist and a well-being one, but they really are heavily intertwined. So, just to remind everybody, so the NHS definition of well-being is feeling good and functioning well. Feeling good and functioning well. So it's like, where are you on that scale? If it was a scale of 1 to 10, where would you be? Is my question for everybody that's listening right now. And regardless of what the number is, how could you make it 1 higher? Where 10 is good, what would be the sort of the one first activity that you would do? And there's 5 pillars to well-being, so people can make some choices around these, and they're heavily linked to the resilience wheel as well. So there's connect, and then there's support. But connect with nature as well. Connect is also, how much when you're looking around your city centre do you look up? As I live in Leeds, and I keep looking up and seeing these most amazing sort of buildings and mosaics on, roofs and things like that. So it's just connect with the world around you. And it is also your support network, which is one of the specific dimensions of being resilient. So then there's the whole active and energy. So energy is all about your strengths. So if people need to sort of do that pause, reflect, just think about how many activities that you've got coming up over the next few days or the next week, which are playing to your strengths, which you are looking forward to doing, which you can look at and go, oh, Tuesday afternoon or Thursday afternoon, I'm going to do so-and-so. That makes me feel good. Now, if you haven't got anything, then obviously you need to put one thing in, that is there to go, yeah, looking forward to that, whatever that is. There's also, give and meaning. So doing things for others, and then that's the attachment, the meaning about, how come you're doing it? So it's like, have I got meaningful friendships, meaningful work, meaningful colleagues, meaningful hobbies, and all of that will be linked to your purpose as well about, how you're here. And then the final one, massively about everything I've talked about today, is keep learning and adaptability. That's one of the pillars of well-being, So it's thinking about how do you learn? I'm not talking about learning styles. I'm talking about actually what is it that works for you to take on sort of new ideas? So it does take an element of reflection. But my invitation is to everybody that's listening to this. Some of us are highly energized by working this all out inside ourselves. And I just invite everybody that's listening to this, just go share with one person what you're thinking of doing around your resilience and the well-being. And then that conversation will go somewhere, take it, do it with somebody that you trust, because the nice thing about doing it with somebody that you trust is because they care about you, then they'll take this conversation with a level of love and care that it desires, They won't say anything like, well, that's a stupid idea, because you trust them. They'll just go with it. They'll listen to you. They'll talk to you. They'll bounce off you. So yeah, one person, but think about who is it that you trust and go share that with them.
What really stands out to me, Russell, from this whole conversation is that kind of self versus community. And that's exactly what you're saying, isn't it? Is find your community, the people you trust and that you can share with. And through that, have those really healthy conversations that support you. I really like, there's lots within what you said that I've really liked, but I love the way you talked about your team at the co-op as well, and how, you know, as when Matt said to you, what did you enjoy about that? The first thing you said was the team, the community, the group of people around you that supported you. And I think, I mean, I used to work in the local community and then I moved across to higher education. And that was one of the profound differences, is that you potentially, and this isn't all higher education institutions, but you move to a place where it is often about the self and getting ahead and not collaborating and being quite isolated instead of, and I know that's not fair to all people in all higher education institutions, but there is often that competition. And so that keeps us quite isolated. And I think, sadly, that often leads to burnout. And talking to a couple of people who work in higher education who have been burnt out, it's because they haven't been able to share. They haven't been able to connect for a whole variety of reasons. And I just wondered if you had any advice for higher education institutions to support colleagues to avoid this kind of burnout.
So if you're thinking sort of, organisationally, just building upon that point, you want the senior leadership, or people need to go talk to the senior leadership and literally go, collaboration. If that's one of our values, our drivers, or our intents, or our purpose, so we're an organisation that collaborates, So I don't mean it's like it just gets talked about at board level and they come up with some nice papers and then they just go to everybody, right, go collaborate. I mean, actually, how can we make this? So that's one of the ways which will start to butt up against this. In academia, it's about me. I've got to get published. I've got to get sorted. But if there's collaboration going on as well and people see the value and the benefit in it, because human beings only do the things they see the value and benefit to themselves. Doesn't mean we're selfish. It just means that we need a reason why. So organizationally, think about this word collaborate. And then individual line managers, think about what your strengths are and are you playing to them? And please, please, please go to your teams and go, so what do you like doing then? What do you enjoy? Out of the things that you've been doing or you got coming up, which you're most excited about? And if the answer's none of it, then do something about it, and if it's 50-50, that's just made the way that it might be. So as a line manager, it is within your gift to let people know and role model that you give everybody permission that we're trying to find a way that you do work that you enjoy or it plays to your strengths. And that's a starting point, and it has like a massive snowball effect as a result of that.
I was just going to say, and there is collaboration that happens across universities, obviously, but often there's an underlying sense that I will collaborate as long as I come out on top. So how do we kind of get this community where actually sometimes we're collaborating for the good of others rather than just through how I can get ahead?
Yeah, so people need to see the blueprint. So there will be lots of higher education establishments that have done collaboration, and they will have a massive story to tell and case studies. How about how individuals and the collective have benefited, so go find them and bring them in and find a way to work out what worked. It is a bit of a slow burn. It goes into the more of a conversation around what are the type of values that our organization wants to live by.
Yeah, the culture.
Unfortunately, is that buzzword. It is the culture thing. What we want that to be, and I suppose it's really fascinating on this one. I'm getting towards the end of the podcast. It's like if or when the point comes that an individual is choosing to only collaborate for their personal benefit, what does the organization want to genuinely do about that? It's like when that point comes, what do you want to do? Do you want to face into it? Do you want to say something about it? Do you want to let them know, with quality feedback that actually this isn't the way we do things around here? so you need to change, or something needs to change. So that's the sort of question, really. It's like, when that point comes, what do you want to do?
Well, Russell, you've given us loads to reflect on already in this podcast, but we always like to finish the podcast in the same way, where we ask our guests for 2 or 3 take-home tips that the listener could reflect on in terms of their own personal practice. So if you do have a couple of things for our listeners, what would they be?
Yeah. So to start with the end in mind. Really do answer the question with some enjoyment, with mind maps, with creativity, with a friend, with post-it notes. What does a resilient you look like, sound like, and feel like? Create the straw person around it. And also at the same time, answer the question around how are you either going to maintain or get to optimistic. So with your strengths, your skills, your capabilities, your attitude, your mindset that you and others have got, how are you going to hone and clarify those? Let yourself know that you've got these things so you can get to optimistic. So then the third thing that just, follows on from that is find continuous ways to play to your strengths, the things that you enjoy doing, because they build natural resilience and natural confidence. When you're doing things you enjoy, you're having a good time. You feel good.
Brilliant. Thanks for your time today, Russell. It's been a fascinating conversation.
You're very welcome.
Well, it's always good to catch up with Russell. He talked about figuring out what a resilient you looks like. He draws from his resilience wheel to support this, which we've linked to in the podcast-specific reading list, so you can have a look at that for yourself at your leisure. He challenges us to reflect on the wheel and to think about what we need to do to build our own personal resilience.
Yeah, I really enjoyed speaking to Russell as well. I liked what he was saying about the challenges of balancing self versus community with a view to building our own resilience. And I think this is something that we really need to think about, because we do struggle with this sometimes in higher education. It's something we need to start to take seriously with a view to supporting our own personal as well as the institutional resilience. Well, there's lots in that podcast, which I know I'm going to go away and think about. If you'd like to take your thinking further, we've added some resources to the website on a specific podcast reading list, which you can access at liverpool.ac.uk/the-academy/podcast. And Russell talked in the podcast about studying case studies of effective collaboration in higher education. And one place where colleagues can find teaching and supporting learning specific case studies is on the Advance HE website for their collaborative awards for teaching excellence. And so we've linked to these case studies in the reading list as well. We always love to know what you think about each episode, so please do tweet us at Live Uni Academy, and you can also find us at eLearnerMatt or at Alexandra_Owen on Twitter.
And we're really grateful for those who have taken the time to either rate or review our show in your podcast provider's app. So if you haven't done so already, please do take the time to review our show, or even better, simply share the episode with friends and colleagues on your social media. Bye for now.